All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Humans in Space Virtual Finalist Selection. My name is David Lee, an investment manager here at Boreum, and it is my pleasure to be your moderator for this wonderful event. Once again, congratulations to all the semi-finalists of the 2023 Humans in Space Challenge, and I literally cannot wait to hear your research pitches. But before that, I wanted to thank everybody here on behalf of Boreum. In just a year, the Cairn Space, now Humans in Space Challenge, has transformed from a visionary concept into a thriving reality, all thanks to the steadfast support from our valued partners and judges and the actual participants of the challenge. Humans in Space wouldn't be what it is today without you guys, and we're extremely honored to have you in the Humans in Space ecosystem. Before we start the pitches, I would love to introduce our esteemed and very talented judges for tonight. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Matthias Bathner, Professor of Psychiatry at the University of Pennsylvania and the Director of Behavioral Regulation at the Department of Psychiatry. Up next, we have Dr. Charles Chu, Professor of Laboratory Medicine at the University of California, San Francisco. Next, we have Dr. Kathy Young, Associate Professor of Pharmacy and Investigator at the Kidney Research Institute at the University of Washington. Next, we have Dr. Don Balls, Assistant Professor in Surgery and expert in molecular biology and medicine at Duke University. Last but not least, we have Nicole Kaplan, Deep Space Exploration Scientist at the European Space Agency. These amazing panel of judges, as well as the Humans in Space evaluating team that is not on screen right now, will be evaluating your research pitches today. All right, I hope everyone is ready for the main event for today, the research pitches. Again, just a reminder for the researchers, you have 2 minutes to pitch your research. Then we're going to be moving on to the 1-minute Q&A session with the judges. Judges, just a reminder again, if you have any questions that you want to ask, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom, and I will moderate you into the question. Okay, let's get started. So the first research pitch of the Humans in Space Virtual Finalist Selection is going to be Emmy Joel. Emmy from Embry-Riddle University will start us off by telling us about her research, which addresses the adverse psychological reactions to unplanned depressurization of hypersonic aircrafts and determine if a pilot will be able to respond to the emergency situations to make a successful landing. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a virtual round of applause to Emmy Joel.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Let me just adjust this really quick. Okay. Perfect. So, hello, welcome. My name is Emmy Joel, and my intended research is human physiology and ability to respond in emergency explosive depressurization in suborbital hypersonic flight. My name is Emmy Joel. I'm a Learjet Medevac pilot. I am also a student at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, studying a PhD in aviation, specializing in human factors. I have been an analog astronaut since 2014, doing a lot of human factors research in extreme environments. So NASA has explicitly stated why hypersonics research is important, both for Earth and for space. Imagine flying the Concorde, but 3 times faster. Hypersonic aircraft fly faster than Mach 5, and you can go anywhere in the world in under 2 hours. In regards to space, all spacecraft that re-enter Earth's orbit are at hypersonic speeds, anywhere from Mach 25 to Mach 10 and decelerating to 0. And so my problem is looking at human physiology, and in particular pilots, and how they can effectively manage an emergency situation if they're flying hypersonic speeds, and can they make a safe landing? So the problem here is flight altitude and speed. Now, if you look, you have current aircraft Concorde and the NASA X-15. NASA X-15 was a manned, successful hypersonic flight. And if you take a look at the difference between the altitudes and the speed, they're flying 6 times higher and 6 times faster than current aircraft today. So some of the challenge here with rapid depressurization, just to name a few: decompression sickness, vacuum exposure, hypoxia, and barotrauma. And so this is a 2-phase study. First, we are currently developing a hypersonic flight simulator, and this is to simulate the aerodynamic emergency situation that pilots will face. The test subjects will be wearing specialized suits similar to the NASA X-15 pilots, and the control group will be utilizing regular pilot uniforms. We'll be collecting biometric data, and we'll also be collecting pilot performance data. The second phase is using actual test dummies or mannequins that are connected to biometric wearables, and they will simulate the human body that will undergo a hyperbaric or depressurization in a hyperbaric chamber. The immediate use here is we are currently developing a hypersonic aircraft flight simulator. We'll also be innovating a spacesuit flight suit, again, whether it's replicating an X-15 suit or integrating new technology from current spacesuits, and as well as developing pilot emergency depressurization protocols.
Okay, Emmy, due to time restraints, we're going to have to cut you off right there. Thank you for an amazing pitch. I know it was a lot of pressure being first on the list, but I think you crushed it. Now the floor will be open to the judges to ask questions for 1 minute to Emmy. Judges, ask away, please.
Hi, Emmy. That was a really great presentation. I have a question for you about the hyperbaric simulation.
Yes.
And does that actually simulate the experience of returning under hypersonic speed?
So that is going to be just experiencing just the depressurization and actually descending from a high altitude down to zero. So that's going to be a separate phase of the hypersonic flight simulator is experiencing the hypersonic variables, right? But the hyperbaric chamber is actually looking at how the body experiences going from, let's say, 300,000 feet down to zero or sea level.
All right. I think that would be the first and only question for Emmy. Emmy, thank you so much again for participating. I wish you the best of luck. All right, so up next we have Suptik Bhattacharjee from the University of Adelaide, who will share his research that aims to develop architectural design guidelines and prototypes for a lunar health maintenance facility. Please welcome Suptik as he comes up on stage.
Hello, am I audible? Hello. Hello.
Yes, Suptik,
Hello.
good to go?
Yes. Thank you for the introduction. I am here to present our project, the Lunar Health Maintenance Facility, with my supervisor, Dr. Amit Srivastava from the University of Adelaide. So now, okay. So coming from India, there are a lot of challenges to access the good healthcare for the remote areas. And recently we also found that COVID had killed over 500,000 of people's life. So after COVID, we found that there is a lot of demand in the telemedicine. Thus, the market is set to boom to $200 billion in 2030. Now, looking into the space sector, we can see there is a trend in the human spaceflight and space tourism. Thus, our research aims to develop the in-space medical infrastructure for the medical remote diagnosis, which will create not only the space industry, but will improve the remote healthcare infrastructure on Earth. But there is a lack in the technical solutions for the remote diagnosis infrastructure. Some of the technologies like Holoport being used by NASA in 2021 and other technologies like the electrical impedance tomography, which is a non-invasive medical imaging technique, and CORPA GRX, which is a precise remote surgical intervention, shows great promises. But we need the space instance, which is needed, the spatial infrastructure is needed, where we come in as the architects. So we will at first develop the design guidelines. Then we will proceed to building the prototypes. We will use the state-of-art methods like the digital modeling and parametric simulations, and finally test the prototypes at the Space Research Laboratory available at the University of Adelaide. We are already in touch with consultants across the globe, and we are ready to start the laboratory testing phase. So finally, this research will advance the knowledge of space medicine and space architecture. Thus, the lunar application of telehealth infrastructure prototype is set to transform the rural healthcare landscape. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Suktik, for the wonderful research idea. Just keep in mind, I know that this is a very short pitch and a short Q&A, and I know the semi-finalists are kind of worried right now if they'll be able to deliver enough information for the judges to make informative decisions. But like we mentioned, we have given the judges a applicant analysis sheet that they have with them right now, and they are using that to complement their decisions right now. So don't worry about that. Again, thank you for the wonderful pitch. Judges, if you have any questions, now's the time. If the judges don't have any questions for Suktik, I think the Humans in Space evaluating team has a question right now. Suktik, what are some other field of disciplines that your research can collaborate with?
Yes, so you see, there are a lot of scopes in the space medicine and space architecture is merging together. So like other fields like the human factor engineering and also the analog testing facilities will be developed through this research. So in the meantime, we are catering the space as well as on the rural earth as well. So it's creating a scope not only for space, but also for rural areas. So it's a huge opportunity that will open up with this research.
Okay, all right. Thank you for your answer. Again, thank you for participating. We wish you the best of luck. We're gonna go move on to the next pitcher.
Sure.
All right, we have our third pitch for the day. Please welcome Gopal Kakoria from the International Institute for Astronautical Sciences. As he will pitch his research about the physiological effects of gravity transitions on cardiovascular, respiratory, neurological, and vestibular systems for flyers with different health profiles. So please welcome Gopal.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you're good to go.
Okay. Hello, Humans in Space team. Thank you so much for this exciting opportunity. We are citizen science researchers with the International Institute for Astronautical Sciences, and we have come together for our common mission to establish space for all. We are physicians, engineers, Air Force pilots, and payload experts who really believe in this mission. And in line with that mission, space is becoming more accessible to a diverse group of people. Here you can see space tourists with the Blue Origin mission, as well as our first para-astronaut, John McFall, with the European Space Agency. And again, citizen scientists as ourselves will also find access to space become easier. But we have an utter lack of data on how gravity transitions will affect people of different health profiles, which NASA has also identified as a research gap. Using our Falcon 20 aircraft as an asset in our reduced gravity lab, we will simulate gravity at low Earth orbit, on Moon and Mars, just to record the physiological changes in a diverse group of people. These parameters were recorded using validated wearable devices like the AstroSkin that you see here, using citizen science methods. The data will be analyzed and published in an online graphical data repository, which is our solution. And through this project, we hope to improve our standard operating protocols to make them safe and efficient. Subsequently, the project will be scaled up, garnering funding to collaborate with other parabolic flight institutions. And this will help increase the sample size, gather more data, and continuously update the database to improve its reliability and predictability. This data then can be shared with like-minded space research organizations and even loaned out to private entities like space tourism companies. This data repository will become the scientific foundation upon which we can move to a suborbital platform and also allow us all to explore space safely together. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your pitch, Gopal. We're going to move on to the Q&A session with the judges. We'll see if we have any questions from the judges. Judges, take it away.
Sure, I'll go first if you don't mind. Thank you for the lovely pitch. I can see from your pitch that you're planning to have parabolic flights for the 20-second intervals of 10 exposures each. From my own experience with parabolic flights, to have a decent data set, you're going to need quite a significant amount of flights. Just how many flights are you planning?
Well, so far we have planned for five flights for next year. We hope to establish a physiological dose response curve on a 0G, 0.36G, and 1G levels. However, the NASA gap specifically addressed that we also need to establish G levels of 0.25, 0.5, and 0.75. And we have taken that goal further by assessing those G levels in different health profiles, whether you're obese, diabetes, and creating a graphical database that we can predict the responses in future populations of space tourism.
Thank you very much.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. Dr. Basner, if you have a question for Gopal.
Yeah, great presentation. Thank you. I just want to know, what kind of health conditions are you focusing on? Because you have to, I guess, pick a few if you're not going with healthy astronaut-like people.
Correct. We are not we're not entirely focused on specific health conditions, as our sample size will depend on partnerships with private parabolic organizations as well as private space tourism companies. So we'll partner with them to allow these participants to wear our devices and collect the data, and we'll update the database based on their health conditions. The more sample size we have, the more health conditions we will be able to capture.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gopal, for your wonderful presentation. We have to move on to our next pitch. It's my privilege to introduce you to our fourth pitch of the day, Miroslav Rozvasnik from the University of Ostrava. Miroslav will share his research that aims to quantify nitrogen elimination from the human body during various oxygen pre-brief exercise protocol. Ladies and gentlemen, Miroslav.
Hello, can you see and hear me?
Yes, you're good to go.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to organizers and also to jury for giving the opportunity to introduce our research focused on quantitative analysis of nitrogen elimination during aerobic oxygen breathing. Sorry. Okay, so when we talk about the spacesuits, spacesuits operate at lower ambient pressure. This means that before every extravehicular activity, astronauts, they need to breathe oxygen for a couple of hours to get rid of nitrogen and to avoid risk of decompression sickness. This, of course, imposes huge operational constraints, and also it's a severe risk for health risk because there is no validated treatment protocol to treat decompression sickness in space. This, of course, considering the future exploration of Moon and Mars, the methods are not optimal. For this reason, we are proposing our project, which will use innovative approach to quantify nitrogen elimination from a human body. Our method was preliminarily tested in laboratory and showed very promising results. With our approach, we would like to create an individual nitrogen elimination protocol, which will definitely improve safety of astronauts during extravehicular activities. To do so, 10 healthy volunteers will undergo 3 exercise protocols. During each exercise protocol, subjects will be breathing oxygen and they will be monitored for decompression stress, namely for venous gas emboli with transthoracic echocardiography. Also, we'll monitor nitrogen elimination with the mass spectrometry. All exercise protocols will be later compared. Our team consists of cardiologists, environmental physiologists, and sport physiologists, having cumulatively more than 70 years of research experiences. Our research, besides having astronauts as end users, will be also beneficial for other groups, namely for pilots and also for divers. Especially in divers, our research and knowledge base can create a platform for further development of new decompression algorithms for divers. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your pitch, Miroslav. I think you did a wonderful job of compacting your information into a 2-minute pitch. We're going to move on to the Q&A again. Judges, the floor is open for you to ask questions if you have any.
Yeah, Miroslav, great presentation. Thank you. Do you think 10 subjects will be enough to, get to the results you want, or is this more thought of as a pilot study and then other studies will follow?
Yeah, it's meant as a pilot study because we will be testing different protocols to understand. Of course, we will be continuously measuring. So at the end, we will have several hundreds of measuring points, which I believe will be sufficient for preliminary pilot analysis.
Okay, Nicole, question?
Thank you for the great presentation. I just wanted to understand a little bit about the study design. So I would assume that you have a control group planned, and I wondered if you thought about having another study group. You mentioned divers. I wondered if there would be some applications to draw parallels between the diving community and astronauts.
Yeah, that's a good point, not at this stage. So currently we would like to focus on study in laboratory, and subsequently, of course, we can also continue with divers.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Miroslav. Good luck to you again. We're going to be moving on to the next pitch. So we'll see you. All right, our fifth pitch of the day is going to be Christopher Parada from Wake Forest Institute for Regenerative Medicine. Chris will come up on stage to talk about whether the microgravity environment alters the ability of human hematopoietic stem cells to differentiate and recognize hematological tumors for removal. Christopher, the stage is all yours.
Thank you. How do I see my slides? I share from my own computer or? Oh, never mind. Thank you.
You good to go?
So like many people of my generation, I grew up watching Cosmos and dreamt of working with Carl Sagan and perhaps one day becoming an astronaut. As soon as I was old enough, I got a paper route and saved up all of my money and pay for over 2 years to buy myself a telescope to begin my journey to the stars. Unfortunately, the world had other plans for me, and I developed severe childhood asthma, thus dashing my dreams of joining the astronaut corps. However, rather than lose hope, I pivoted my career goals and studied molecular biology and physiology in the hope that I could one day work with NASA and help keep astronauts safe during future missions. During such missions, beyond low Earth orbit or LEO, the greatest risk to astronauts is space radiation. Near Earth, even aboard the ISS, we are protected from space radiation by the Earth's magnetosphere, which acts as a shield. Thus, despite years of research, the potential for space radiation to cause cancer remains the greatest red risk to NASA and is predicted to remain so for many years to come. Space radiation is particularly harmful because of its high energy, which causes complex double-strand breaks or DSBs in DNA that can't be repaired by the cell. This damage, if it's unchecked, can lead to transformation and cancer. You may wonder, since we each accumulate trillions of new mutations each day, why don't we all get cancer? This is because the simple mutations we acquire are almost all repaired, and because our immune system can recognize and eliminate the ones that have undergone transformation. Unfortunately for astronauts, spaceflight and microgravity in particular has been shown to dramatically impair immunity. In our project, we'll test the hypothesis that microgravity impairs immune cells that are critical for immune surveillance, and also for detecting and eliminating malignant cells, thus placing astronauts doubly at risk of cancer due to accumulation of mutations from exposure to space radiation and a reduced ability of the immune systems to eliminate the cells. The overall question we'd like to answer is, does microgravity alter the ability of human hematopoietic stem and progenitor cells, or HSC, to differentiate into functional dendritic cells and NK cells? All right, so quickly. I'll just quickly, the applications we feel for space, we'll be using a rotating wall vessel, which mimics many aspects of microgravity, but it's not true microgravity. So we feel to validate these results, we would have to perform experiments aboard the ISS. The data we generate will be invaluable to NASA for accurate cancer risk assessment. Such data will enable the development of effective treatments and countermeasures to keep astronauts safe during planned missions beyond LEO, And we feel the proposed studies could also enable a significant advance in space health and reveal novel means of better treating cancer on Earth.
All right, Christopher, due to the time restraints and the fairness of the competition, we're gonna have to stop it right there. But thank you for the eye-opening pitch, and thank you for also your personal story during your pitch. We're gonna move on to the Q&A session. I think Nicole has a question. Nicole.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation and also of your personal story. You mentioned the rotating wall vessel. In my field, we haven't used that particular apparatus before, but we do use 3D random positioning machines. And I wondered if you can draw similarities between those two platforms. If you have access to that platform as well, maybe it would add to your data set. I don't know if that's something that you've considered.
Oh, it is. Yes, actually, that's something that we've dreamt of owning for years, and we've never been able to get a grant that would enable us to buy a random positioning machine. So that's actually an even better model, because the rotating wall vessel basically places cells or organoids in a state of continuous free fall, in which all of the gravity vectors essentially cancel or null one another. The random positioning machine actually moves everything, as you know, in 3 dimensions. So it's actually a much better system. We just don't have access to one of those at this point, but if we had access, certainly we'd love to incorporate it into our studies.
Okay, right, understood. Thank you very much.
Dr. Erdogan, did you have a question that you wanted to ask?
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Chris, for that great presentation. I was just curious, your source of the stem cells that you were going to evaluate, were they going to be from multiple patients or commercially available?
Yes. So in all the studies that we've been doing in the lab, which unfortunately I miscalculated how much time, 2 minutes goes much faster than I thought. We would be getting CD34 positive cells that are isolated from bone marrow of normal healthy donors of typical astronaut age. And we usually get those from either Stem Cell Technologies or Ossium Health.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Christopher, again for your wonderful presentation. We're gonna get moving. Looks like we're already off to a great start here for the Humans in Space virtual finalist selection. We're gonna keep it moving, so let's invite Chang-Gun Kim from Weill Cornell University as he shares his research about the generation of comprehensive multi-omic profiles to analyze the immune system before, during, and post spaceflight. Please welcome Chang-Gun to the stage.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the introduction. Let's get started. The title is Comprehensive Biomedical and Multi-Omic Profiling of Immune Dysregulation with Countermeasure Development for Astronaut. We are in the exploding era of space exploration from Earth to Moon and Mars. For future space exploration, we must address one major risk: altered immune response. This proposal will address the following NASA human research roadmap risk: effects of radiation of immune dysfunction, viral reactivation, and identify immune biomarkers and countermeasures. Our team has led several integrative astronaut multi-omic studies, including the NASA Twin Study and Inspiration4 mission. As a quick summary of the major findings of the Inspiration4 mission, we found immune cell gene expression changes after spaceflight, and immune and metabolic functions. The y-axis labels were dysregulated in immune cells. The x-axis labels immediately post-flight, labeled as circles, and recovered over time, labeled as triangles. Based on our expertise, we want to expand the integrative multi-omic immunome analysis with Axiom-2 mission and Polaris-Down mission. We have started to collect pre-flight, in-flight, and post-flight samples for immunome analysis. We'll generate various types of multi-omics data, such as direct RNA sequencing, immunophenotyping, single-cell multi-omic analysis, and biochemical profiling or complete blood count, and analyze the data based on our analysis pipeline to understand immunological changes and it will develop the potential countermeasure using AI-based algorithms. This is our team to achieve this goal with the expert groups, the space omics team, immunology and microgravity team, space radiation team, NASA collaborators, and biochemical profiling team, and inspiration for Axiom and Polaris Down teams. Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you, Changun, for the amazing pitch. The floor is open to the judges again to ask questions. Dr. Charles, looks like you have a question for Changun. Dr. Charles, your mic is off right now, so please turn on your mic.
Oh, yeah, thank you for that great presentation. I just had a quick question about countermeasures. Having done omics for several years, can you provide one or two concrete examples on how immune dysregulation can lead to countermeasures? Because strictly speaking, there really isn't an established countermeasure even on Earth for mild immune dysregulation.
So our team developed the AI-based drug algorithms, and we have tested with the microgravity simulated PBMC single cell multiomic data to adapt our algorithms to find the countermeasure. The metric of the countermeasure is a kind of reverse the gene expression changes by the perturbation. So we were able to identify specific drug or food supplement to reverse the gene expression change after microgravity stimulation.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. Dr. Dawn?
Thank you for that wonderful presentation. Very ambitious project. I had a question along the lines of budget. Do you feel that you can accomplish all of this work that you're proposing in the given budget? If not, do you have additional funds to complete the work?
That's a good point. It's a kind of long-term project, and I think we can aim for some of the analysis or some of the data generation based on this budget, and we can merge with other grant or other resources to get a big picture. But I think based on this budget, we can accommodate some of the single cell data generation or some analysis pipeline.
Thank you for that explanation.
All right, thank you again, Changun, for the amazing pitch. Good luck to you. We're going to get moving. This is going to be our last pitch before our special keynote session from one of our esteemed judges here tonight. Please welcome Madeline Hoying from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology about the development of the capability to monitor intestinal barrier function in space. Madeline, the stage is all yours.
Thank you. All right, my research is on epithelial barrier dysfunction in space and how we can detect it. All right, so epithelial tissue makes up most of the cavities in your body. So we have things like the skin, the inside lining of the nose, the lining of the intestine is all epithelial tissue. The cells that form this tissue play a key function in forming a barrier. So, for example, we can keep bacteria out of the bloodstream and prevent things like immune cells from being able to cause unnecessary inflammation. Tight junctions are what really drive this barrier function. Tight junctions can be, think of them like Velcro that kind of sticks the neighboring cells together. In space, it's been shown that the lack of gravity results in a breakdown of the structural support inside the cell that holds onto those tight junctions. So like Velcro without any backing, the cells don't have anything to hold on to, and that barrier function stops working. This is thought to be an underlying cause of most of the reported in-space medical conditions because those epithelial tissues are systemic. Our lab has a solution to being able to monitor for these changes in space. First, we plan to correlate the tissue response across different types of epithelial tissue to simulated spaceflight. We'll do this through subjecting 10 rabbits to hind limb unloading, and then utilize our state-of-the-art electrophysiology equipment and team of experts to do functional assessments of the barrier function of these tissues throughout the body in the Ussing chamber, and then directly image the proteins to see what's happening at the structural level with the transmission electron microscopy. This research is in its early stages with promising preliminary results. once we know the correlation between different tissue types, we can create a single device that will allow us to determine changes to the epithelial barrier throughout the body. Our lab has already designed a device that performs these measurements for earth-based diseases that's been approved for human testing. Instead of treating each condition individually as an isolated event in space, we can directly address the underlying cause of up to 60% of in-space medical conditions. From a human health standpoint, this means fewer medical incidents for our astronauts. From a programmatic standpoint, though, this means we have one single device and treatment instead of bringing an entire specialized suite of equipment for each condition that occurs in space. Thank you.
All right, what a research proposal, Madeline. We're going to move on to our last Q&A session before our keynote speech. Judges, if you have any questions for our last Q&A session, please ask away. Dr. Charles, do you have a question in mind?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Thanks for that great presentation. How are you planning to measure, for instance, markers, or are you planning to measure biomarkers of inflammation, such as, like CRP, et cetera?
We have looked into that. We're choosing right now to focus this primarily on that tight junction breakdown as opposed to the immune response, just to really get this idea at the first level of what's actually happening at the cells. Yeah.
Thank you.
Dr. Kathy, did you have a question in mind too?
Yeah, thanks for that great presentation, Madeline. I have a question about how well that animal hind limb unloading actually translates into microgravity. It seems like a pretty rough procedure on the animals, and I'm wondering if we know that it actually reflects what happens in the human condition.
That's a great question. So there's actually, it's most commonly done in like mouse and rat models. And so we actually chose to scale this up to a rabbit model because of a paper published out of Roscosmos by Andrzejewski that shows that as you scale up in size, the effect actually is a better approximation for the human condition in space. So having the larger mammal size of the rabbit actually provides us a better approximation for that.
I think we can accommodate one more question, Dr. Don.
This one is also along the lines of the hind limb unloading model. How long do these animals need to be hind limb unloaded before you actually see a physiological effect?
So we are looking at this for long-term spaceflight particularly. So we're doing the first 2 weeks will be hind limb unloading for the rabbits. And then that will accommodate the kind of that initial space adaptation syndrome effects is the thought. And then at that point, we can start to approximate more appropriately the long duration spaceflight, which we'll introduce with some chemical modulators as well as kind of the research plan down the line.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Madeline, again. Good luck to you as well. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the first 7 research pitches for today. We're going to take a short break from the pitches and welcome our keynote speaker for today, Dr. Matthias Basner. Dr. Basner is the professor of psychiatry at the University of Pennsylvania, who participated in both the Axiom 1 and Axiom 2 flight as an investigator. Dr. Basner has also been contributing his expertise and insights for the Humans in Space initiative, as he acts as a judge and mentor for the research applicants of the 2023 Humans in Space Challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Basner as he comes up on stage and delivers his keynote.
Yeah, thank you so much, David, for the kind introduction. I was tasked to say a few words about research in astronauts in the spaceflight environment. And for many of you, you will know a lot of these things, but hopefully for some of you, there will be a few new points. Can I actually? Can you advance to the next slide? Okay, like this. So we all know that spaceflight is a very stressful environment with a number of environmental, operational, and psychological stressors, based on the fact that astronauts are living in an isolated, confined, and extreme environment. And here are just a few of these stressors that can affect astronaut sleep on the one hand and cognitive performance on the other hand. Some of these stressors are unique for the spaceflight environment, like radiation and microgravity. Others we can also encounter on Earth. Obviously, this gives us a great model of, observing how humans behave and how their physiology changes in this extreme environment. On the other hand, whenever we're doing research in spaceflight, we have all of these things acting on the astronauts' physiology at the same time, and these individual stresses also change at the same time. So it's kind of a very messy operational environment, and we have to take that into account when we interpret our own data. The other thing is that we know quite a lot now on how spending a certain amount of time in space affects human physiology. However, we don't know much about longer duration stays in spaceflight. So this is just a graph showing you, how many space missions we have and how long they were. Actually, last time I pulled this was April this year with almost 1,400 space missions by almost 600 unique astronauts. So the shortest mission was by Gagarin, which was only 1 hour, 46 minutes long. We have a lot of information on missions up to, let's say, 20 or 30 days, because that was a typical shuttle duration. We also kind of have still pretty good information on the standard ISS mission, which is typically half a year. But you can see that Scott Kelly's mission was actually fell just short of a year. We only have 4 astronauts so far that spent consecutively more than 1 year in space, and the record holder is still Valery Polyakov with 438 days. And of course, that's in stark contrast to NASA's Design Reference mission, which is currently 1,000 days. A mission to Mars is planned to be around 1,000 days. That's also changing a little bit. But, we know next to nothing about what will happen to astronauts when they're exposed to the space flight environment for prolonged periods of times. And I think this is one of the big gaps in knowledge and something we have to, investigate further in the future. And, some initiatives are already on the way. Obviously, we can not only do research in spaceflight itself, but in space analog environments. I just listed, 2 space analog environments. One is, an Antarctic research station. One is a simulated mission to Mars, the Mars 500 program, where 6 people spent, 520 days in a spacecraft-like environment, and then contrasting that to the International Space Station, a 6-month mission. So in terms of confinement, isolation, and crew size, these 3 different environments are pretty similar and comparable. Microgravity and radiation, this is still something that is really unique to the spaceflight environment and can only be simulated on Earth imperfectly. We obviously have head down tilt bed rest and dry immersion, or what was just shown, the hind limb unloading. And radiation also, the type of radiation, it's very hard to simulate on Earth, aside from the ethical issues. And then obviously there's a threat to life component that actually may be better simulated on Earth right now than in space, because if there is an emergency, you hop on the Soyuz or on a Dragon and you're back on Earth, within a few hours. In Antarctic research stations and on a real trip to Mars, there is no rescue opportunity. Mission duration obviously also can be simulated nicely on Earth, and the cost, of course, of analog research is also much lower than on actual spaceflight research. So we can learn a lot on how astronauts will behave if we do research on Earth. In the end, we need both research in spaceflight and on the ground to inform really how we can get astronauts to Mars and back in a healthy fashion. So some lessons learned, especially if this is the first time that you're actually doing research in spaceflight. So research is only one of the many tasks that astronauts have to accomplish every day. So you have to be mindful of that. They're not lab animals and then doing nothing else. They're not only there for your research, but they're also doing like operational tasks and maintenance tasks, etc. you present one of many research teams, so you have to be mindful of that. You cannot say, you know, me, I want to do all these things and I don't care about the others. But, you know, it has to make sense. So be mindful of both the astronauts and your fellow researchers when you're implementing your science. That is, collect all the data that's necessary to answer your research question, but not more. You know, don't do, I would be nice. This is something nice to have. Don't do the nice to have. Do the things that you really need to address your research questions. And those were my, you know, very brief insights into research on astronaut behavioral health. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Basner, for your valuable insights on the various stressors that affect the cognitive system and the benefits of utilizing microgravity environments for research. I'm very confident that your speech was influential to everyone here present today. Again, we are very lucky to have you as one of the Humans in Space family, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the pitches that will be going on throughout the evening or morning in the US time. Again, for everyone that is joining us right now on YouTube, you are watching the Humans in Space virtual finalist selection, where the semi-finalists of the 2023 Humans in Space Challenge is presenting live to our expert panel of judges to battle for the finalist spot of the challenge. All right, folks, we're going to keep it moving again and start with our 8th pitch of today. Her name is Jinhui Sir from Harvard Medical School, who is also working with Professor Hatsu Choi. She will be coming up on stage to share her research about a real-time monitoring system for assessing changes in blood-brain barrier integrity during space missions by utilizing near-infrared fluorescence technology. Please welcome Jinhui.
Yeah, thank you for introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Jinhui Sir. I'm a speaker from the Golden Center for Medical Imaging in Harvard Medical School. The object of this project is to employ real-time point-of-care imaging technologies for the purpose of monitoring functional alternations within the brain and mitigating potential brain damage in the space environment. Our research team is intrigued by the prospect of comprehending the shift occurring within the brain when exposed to the unique condition of space. With generous support from boron and oxygen, we will carry out investigations specifically aimed at leveling the effect of space environment on the human brain with the NASA TRISH and Space Land Tech. A central question that guides our work is, what are the neurological consequences of space traveling? It is well established that cosmetic radiation and microgravity can induce brain damage and genetic mutations. The NASA twin study has notably demonstrated that extended period of space flight can give rise to genetic alterations. In light of these findings, our research team has twofold focus. Firstly, to actively monitor these changes in real time. And secondly, to develop strategies for preventing such change from occurring within the space environment. We proposed a multifaceted approach involving cutting-edge imaging technologies and preventive measuring using the structural activity relationship. Our research initiative imply microfluid chips, brain-on-chips, and organoid models, combined with real-time brain imaging, to detect on and monitor potential brain damage in microgravity. If damage is detected, we will use chemical preventative and leverage a diverse chemical library for an effective response. An analogy to this approach is using a cap that binds nucleology for telomeres, a protective measure to maintain genomic stability. Thank you for your kind attention.
All right, thank you, Jinhui, for your wonderful pitch. The judges are going to be asking questions right now. Anyone has questions, feel free to ask. Dr. Dong, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you for that wonderful presentation. I was curious how you were proposing to model the microgravity situation.
Actually, we don't know what happened in the microgravity situation. So we injection to our brain blood-brain barrier permeable dyes in the normal human, and we want to compare it with the under the microgravity patient's brain imaging, so we can know the change of the using that image. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the Humans in Space evaluating team had a question. Jinhee, what are some limitations and obstacles? Can you elaborate more on your limitations and some obstacles for your research?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
We were wondering if you can elaborate on the limitations or obstacles of your research.
Oh, I see. Our library has we have 1,000 over the 1,000 chemical libraries, so we can use the library to which dye is more like exact to usable dye for this kind of research.
All right, thank you for your answer. Thank you again for your wonderful pitch. We're going to move on to our 10th pitch. Please welcome our next semi-finalist, Allison Mutri from UC San Diego, to the stage. Allison will be sharing his idea about developing a neuroprotectant formulation that protects the human brain from negative impacts of space environments by testing neuroactive ingredients from the Amazon forest. Please welcome Allison to the stage.
Right. Thanks, everybody. I'm representing my team here. So several studies have identified cognition problems in astronauts, and these are best represented by the NASA Twins experiments, showing like clear evidence of persist cognitive decline post-flight. And really, the only way to mechanistically study that is by using human live brain organoids. These are stem cell-derived, self-assembled, three-dimensional neural tissue that contain all major cell types in the human brain. And we have previously sent human brain organoids to the ISS to identify the impact of microgravity in the space environment. And we found that human brain cells display accelerated aging upon returning to Earth. This was measured by gene expression, proteomics, molecular pathway. We can even compare our data with others to find tissue-specific gene drivers. And in a previous mission, we found a target for a syndromic form of autism leading to a clinical trial starting next year. So here we are proposing to use Alzheimer brain-derived organoid to test neuroprotective molecules isolated from the Amazon forest. Our technology is based on a customized microfluidic platform where the organoids are exposed to the drugs in real time and analyzed by all optical electrophysiology, allowing the identification of neuroprotection. There are several applications on Earth, include drug development for late onset conditions. And I must say that the health market for dementia alone is estimated to grow over $30 billion in 2030. The consequences of this project will also have applications in space, such as astronaut cognitive protection and space tourism. Our team has a complementary expertise in all areas related to the project, including a pioneer in space art who will contribute to the experimental visualization of this project. We are experienced flyers. We have over $40 million in grants, among our other assets. So I'll stop here. I thank for your attention, and I finish with a futuristic view of a brain organoid farm in space. Thank you.
All right, Allison, I think that was a more novel approach in terms of research, and that was such an amazing pitch. Judges, if you have questions for Allison, the floor is all yours. I can see Nicole has a question. Nicole?
Hi, Alison, thank you. I agree that was a fascinating pitch. You mentioned about the neuroprotective reagents that you're deriving from the Amazon. Can you elaborate at all on any of those agents?
Yeah, so I mean, just need to say that 40% of all the commercial drugs that are derived from plants today, and 20% of the best-selling drugs are coming from plants. So what we did, we curated using information from the Amazon indigenous tribes to find the neuroactive on some specific plants, and we purify those compounds. So we know that they cross the BBB and they affect the brain in some ways. So we are just reapplying or repurposing that to Alzheimer's disease and dementia and other conditions.
Thank you. I have many more questions, but I'll hold off for now. Thank you.
Anyone else has any questions for Allison? All right, I think that's going to be it for the Q&A session. Allison, thank you again for participating in the virtual final selection. Good luck. Okay, let's keep it moving by welcoming our next pitch, Mark Rosenberg from the Medical University of South Carolina. Mark will be talking about addressing the risks of strokes in low and microgravity environments. Good luck, Mark.
Hi, good morning all. Thank you again for this opportunity to present. My name is Mark Rosenberg, and I am the Division Director for Aerospace Performance Technology at the Medical University of South Carolina. I'm very proud to announce that we have a strong team of a bunch of different researchers from neuroradiologists, neurovestibular specialists, neurosurgeons, emergency med, we have a strong amount of research and a lot of years of combined effort. And so this is really exciting to present this research on behalf of that team. So the problem that exists is, there's really no specific protocol for rapid in-flight diagnosis and management of acute neurologic decompensation. Now that we're kind of entering this new phase of human spaceflight, we're starting to see individuals that have underlying comorbidities, and how they're going to respond to microgravity is something we're not particularly sure of yet. But the thing is, some might have adverse effects. One of those might be a stroke. When a stroke does occur, 1.9 million neurons, 14 billion synapses or connections between those neuronal cells, and 12 kilometers of myelinated fibers are lost every minute. Because of that, time is of the utmost urgency when these things happen. And on top of that, you have this added layer of getting back to Earth. And it could take up to 3 to 4 hours if you're in low Earth orbit, or if you're even further out, lunar orbit could take 3 to 7 days. So what we'd like to do is we'd actually like to design a standardized neurologic assessment that will set that kind of foundation for all future in vivo neurologic experiments that can be relied upon. How we'd like to do that is there's one commonly used in the United States. It's called the NIH Stroke Scale, or the National Institute of Health Stroke Scale. It was actually initially developed as a means to standardize neurologic examinations across all different trials and studies, but it's now been integrated into our work set. And we use it for anti-gravity. And so we'd like to actually modify that and use a dynamometer to rely upon that strain. How we'll do that is we're going to take stroke patients and we will compare them on Earth, use them against the normal NIH stroke scale, and compare them into space as well, or into the parabolic flight as well. And we'll use the dynamometer to kind of help take the slack for that motor findings, because we can't have anti-gravity in that kind of case.
Okay, due to time constraints, we're gonna have to stop you right there, Mark. I think your audio quality was a little bit on the low side, and so I'm pretty sure the judges have some areas that need clarification. Judges,
Absolutely.
if you have questions right now for Mark, time to ask. Yes, Nicole.
Hi, Mark. Thank you for that presentation. I was wondering if you factored into the experimental design when you're recruiting your subjects. Does gender come into this at all, or not at this stage?
That's a wonderful question. I think initially, because it's meant to be a pilot, what we're more so concerned about is not necessarily gender, but the underlying etiology of how the stroke occurred. If you look at people that have what we call perfusion dependency, they have basically difficulty for the blood flow to get to the brain. So we'd like to recruit patients that have had embolic strokes, or just kind of a one-time hit where they don't have this reliance on abnormal blood flow, because when we put them in these austere environments, we don't want to put them into risk. But as we expand that patient population, we really want to break it down, not only to gender, but also the underlying cause of the neurologic injury, from spinal strokes to if they had, intrauterine problems like cerebral palsy. Because the thing is, as we send more of these more diverse participants in the space, we really need to have as large of a patient pool as possible.
Right. I think we have time for one more question, Dr. Basner.
Yeah, great presentation, Mark. How sensitive do you think this method will be? Because obviously, if we're monitoring astronauts with this, we would like to see, changes early on and not only at a point where it's too late. So do you have any data on that or any ideas?
Not yet. As of now, the data really around abnormal intracerebral blood flow when it comes to actual patients that have had neurologic injury is very scant. But that's the thing, is that unfortunately, space medicine, we need to be preventative. And so we need to be able to develop these metrics before anything like that happens. And so our research hopes to kind of aim at not only serving the research foundation for which all future neurologic research can be based upon if there is any kind of motor deficits, especially as we start to expand more into the para-astronaut realm, but also because if something does happen, we will at least have that foundation for our tool that we can utilize rapidly, especially as we have patients that maybe have underlying comorbidities that could increase their risk for neurologic emergency spaceflight going up.
All right, thank you, Mark, for your wonderful presentation. I know we have about 4 teams left right now, but like we mentioned in our guidelines for the participants, if you tend to have a Bluetooth headset with you, Zoom tends to lower the quality of the sound quality. So if anyone is planning to use Bluetooth headphones for their pitch, we recommend that you switch them out to your laptop's microphone. Also, I think many of you might have noticed that Dr. Kathy is gone right now. She had an important meeting to attend, but she will be watching the recorded version of this pitch. So she is going to finish her evaluations after this session. All right, up next we have Luke Hughes from Northumbria University. Luke will be coming up on stage to talk about developing a proof of concept design for an innovative personalized tourniquet system for spaceflight that can be qualified and approved for spaceflight missions. Luke, floor is all yours.
Thank you. Just checking that you can see me and hear me clearly.
All right, you're good to go.
Great. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. The background of this project is blood flow restriction exercise, which is a novel technique that uses a personalized tourniquet system to compress the exercising limb and reduce blood flow to the muscle and bone during low intensity exercise. It is as effective as high intensity exercise protocols that are currently used on the ISS, but it requires less equipment, time, and intensity for exercise. I'm currently working with ESA and NASA to develop blood flow restriction as an exercise countermeasure for spaceflight. So what problem are we trying to solve with blood flow restriction? Recent data in 17 NASA astronauts revealed that during a 4 to 7 month mission on the ISS, the loss of muscle and bone is equivalent to 10 years of aging on Earth. Exercise is the key countermeasure to mitigate this. However, current ISS exercise hardware is too big and heavy to be flown on future missions. This is an important problem as the level of deconditioning and lack of effective countermeasures increases the risk of injury in astronauts and chances of mission failure. ESA recently highlighted that it is imperative that research develops smaller, less demanding yet effective exercise technologies to mitigate musculoskeletal deconditioning, and that blood flow restriction exercise per se would meet the operational and technological constraints of future missions. Therefore, this research project will aim to develop a personalized tourniquet system for spaceflight that can be qualified and approved for crewed spaceflight missions to enable a demand for BFR research in space. And the key research question is this: can the personalized tourniquet system for spaceflight that is commercially available on Earth be adapted for spaceflight? The key steps are to critically analyze the commercially available device, design and manufacture a prototype technology, and then conduct validation testing in our lab. The critical assets we will use are collaboration with Western Clinical Engineering Group in Canada, who are the inventors and manufacturers of the commercially available device, and Kaiser Space Limited, who are experts in adapting space devices for spaceflight. We will also use our bespoke suspension system to conduct validation testing in simulated micro and lunar gravity. And finally, potential applications and next steps are to include applying for funding to test the device in parabolic flight, and then we would look to apply for more funding to do research on the ISS and commercial space stations. And finally, the IP generated could also be commercialized later down the line. Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you, Luke, for an outstanding pitch. Judges, again, we're going to move on to the Q&A session. If you have any questions for Luke, please ask away.
Hi, Luke. Thank you for that great presentation. I just wanted to ask a quick question. You said that you're going to be using a commercially available off-the-shelf device, and you'll be looking to optimize that. Can you give me an example of one of the things that you are thinking about optimizing in particular?
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. That's a great question. So the plan is to use ESA's reference standards for adapting COTS devices for spaceflight. First of all, one of the key considerations is that this device uses air around atmospheric air to inflate the cuff. So we need to look at if that can be done safely within a confined environment, such as on the ISS. And another kind of key consideration is around the battery. I know that certain battery types are not applicable to the ISS, so we would look to see if the battery needs to be optimized or changed in order to make this device qualified and have the chance to be approved for crewed spaceflight missions.
Very good.
It's a great question.
All right, Dr. Basner, if you have a quick question.
Yeah, is it correct that the benefit would only be for like muscle bones downstream of the cuff? And is it only meant for the upper or also the lower extremities?
We can use it on both upper and lower extremities. The majority of evidence is focused on tissues, so the muscle and bone distal to the cuff. However, there is an emerging body of evidence showing that we can get benefits proximal to the cuff in terms of increasing muscle activation and actually stimulating better muscle growth and strength adaptations in the musculature proximal to the cuff. There's no evidence around the effect on bone proximal to the cuff at present. So this is something we would look to explore in future research. And as I mentioned, we are doing some research looking at the effect of blood flow restriction training as a training tool in these contexts. Thanks for the question.
All right, thank you, Luke. Thank you for participating again. Good luck throughout the rest of your journey.
Thank you.
Kathy, I'm sorry if you're here the whole time. I think I confused your screen with someone else's, but sorry about that. All right, the next pitch is going to be Alejandro Marcano from the Karolinska Institute. Please give a virtual round of applause as Alejandro comes up on stage to talk about creating space-suited fracture treatment protocols, considering spaceflight constraints and mission safety. Ladies and gentlemen, Alejandro Marcano.
Right, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. My name is Alejandro Marcano. I am an orthopedic resident from Karolinska University Hospital and a PhD student here as well, and a former two-time applicant to be an astronaut. And so I would like to tell you a quick story. Imagine Mars. Your bones are weak after a long trip, and when you arrive, you fall down and you break your leg. And the nearest orthopedic surgeon is millions of miles away, and the gravity in Mars is not optimal for bone healing. Now, the mission and billions of dollars could potentially be on the line at this situation. So this is where we actually step in. We are creating an external fixation device that treats fractures that is so easy to use that any crew member can easily or correctly set up. And it will achieve adequate alignment and loading at the fracture site to optimize the healing. For this, we are going to be using Swedish registries to analyze fractures that are due to bone loss in patients with spinal cord injuries. And we'll get to know about the injury mechanisms, the fracture types, and the healing to be able to build and inform the building of this device at the Royal Institute of Technology, where we even got the support from former astronaut Christer Fuglsang. We're taking this device then to space analogs to test them rigorously before actually conducting clinical studies at our hospital. With this, we hope not only to minimize the disruption of the space mission and avoid life-threatening complications, but also back on Earth, a low-cost 3D printed device could be used in remote areas and combat zones where it could potentially prevent amputations. Our team is led by Dr. Berg, who is a professor in microgravity adaptation and the inventor of the flywheel device, who has flown to the ISS and is considered even for the Artemis missions. And we treat fractures every day in these amazing astronaut-like suits. so we won't let the fractures ruin a mission to Mars. Thank you.
Thank you for a very memorable pitch, Alejandro. If the judges have any questions, they will be asking you through the Q&A session. Judges, if you have questions, I think Dr. Basner has one.
Yeah, great pitch. Thank you so much. So how does the device that you're proposing differ from already existing devices? What's the mechanism? How does it work?
So the device is currently under development and is patent pending. I can unfortunately not give many details, but it is going to work with being easy to set up. So it doesn't injure the different structures in the leg. We're focusing now on the lower extremity. And it will provide assistance in the reposition of the fracture.
All right, I think that's it for the Q&A session for Alejandro. Thank you again for participating. Good luck. We're going to be moving on to our 13th pitch session, Boaz Lerner. He's from the Ben Gurion University of the Negev. And we will talk about developing a personalized AI system to continuously detect and monitor pre-symptomatic risks, symptoms, and diseases, and their temporal causal interrelations early before diagnosis for astronauts. Please welcome Boaz as he comes up on stage.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you loud and clear. I think you're good to go.
But I can't switch the slides. Why I can't switch the slides? Okay. There is a delay.
Are you not able to switch between your slides?
No. Why is that?
We will change the slides for you. Just let us know what to change the slides for.
Okay, so let's get back to the first one, please. And I pause between the slides. Okay, so hello, I'm Boaz Lerner, Professor of Machine Learning and the founder and CSO of Panacea ML. My research in the university, the drive to found Panacea ML, and my desire to participate in the Humans in Space program all stem from my passion to understand diseases and to early diagnose and prevent them. Today, I present to you my proposal of AI system for continuous explanatory space and Earth monitoring. So the problem we discuss is late. Please check. The problem we discuss is late disease diagnosis, undermining, delaying treatment and prevention. Since urine data exists both on Earth and in space, we will design a urine-based disease detection system. Our AI system will detect and monitor health risks for astronauts from their recruitment through their training and missions to allow intervention and prevention at any time. We hypothesize that we can, please change, we hypothesize that we can identify and continuously monitor using urine sample data, modifiable risk factors and diseases accurately, informatively, and early enough in the disease pre-symptomatic period. We will define 2 to 3 diseases that coexist in space and on Earth and design a urine-based detection model for each. Training will be using the electronic health record, the EHR, and validation using measurements from a smart toilet. Our AI is not a conventional machine learning tool. Besides prediction, our proprietary tool provides temporal causal relationships among measurements to reveal disease root causes very early and accurately, as we demonstrated in early detection of ALS, Crohn's, Parkinson's, and prediabetes years before diagnosis. We will use the EHR of a health maintenance organization for training and data from Olive Diagnostics Smart Toilet for validation. Please skip 2 slides, please. Another one, please. And the last one, scalability. Once validated on the smart toilet-based data on Earth, the system will be scalable to space.
We're going to have to cut you off, Boaz. Thank you for your pitch. We had some technical difficulties in the beginning, but a great pitch nonetheless. Judges, if you have any questions for Boaz, please feel free. Boaz, Dr. Shu?
Yeah, Boaz, great talk. I just had a quick question. Can you mention that you're going to be looking at 1 to 2 diseases from urine? Most of the diseases, as you know, are diagnosed from blood. And I'm just curious as to exactly what diseases you're looking at or you propose to look at.
So since we don't have any blood test in space, we have to use the urine samples. And the reason we use the EHR is exactly for the purpose you mentioned, to find those disease spaces that first exist both on Earth and in space, and secondly, can be detected from urine samples. And once we find those markers and we validate those markers using the EHR, we will use the toilet to validate the toilet as a source for these markers.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Basner, a quick question for Boaz.
Yeah, first thing I heard about a smart toilet, but you learn everything new. I just want to know, how many parameters are you extracting from the urine as your prediction space, so to say?
Usually it's around 10, both in the EHR and in the smart toilet. Usually there are around 10. And we will have to find correlations and interrelations between any of these or combination of them with any interesting disease space to exactly find those markers that are specific to those disease spaces that we can detect. But basically, there are 3,000 molecules in the urea. So once we validate the idea, we can go and find other molecules and other tests that will help in other diseases.
All right, thank you, Boaz. I think you gave a wonderful pitch, great time, and thank you for your participation in the virtual finalist selection. We're going to move on due to our schedule. Folks, thank you for staying with us all until this time. We are about to welcome the final presenter of today, Devon Mundine from the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. Devon is seeking to understand the effects of GCR and DNA and the subsequent repair mechanisms, which he claims will advance the field of genomic integrity by leveraging a new drug in the unique setting of GCR exposure. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our last research pitch of the day, Devon Mundine.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're good to go.
And just make sure I can advance my slide. Okay, thank you very much. So a commercial space station, a moon base, and a Mars colony are all on the horizon, but none of these ambitious space projects can move forward until we first deal with a major astronaut health issue, cancer from cosmic radiation. On a trip to the moon or Mars, astronauts experience 100 times the radiation dose of an average American in 1 year. So how do we solve this fundamental problem that cosmic radiation increases cancer risk and limits our ability to explore space? Well, we know that when cells are hit with high energy particles like cosmic rays, they activate an emergency backup repair system called alternative end joining. The problem is that alternative end joining introduces mutations into the genome, increasing cancer risk. We think we can reduce cancer risk by giving astronauts ART-558. This is a drug that inhibits polymerase theta and effectively shuts off alternative end joining, reducing cancer risk. The way that we're going to test the efficacy of this drug is multifaceted. First, we'll expose cells to simulated cosmic radiation with a linear particle accelerator, and then we'll have a multi-resolution readout. Essentially, we'll look at cell survival and mutation burden. We'll also look at chromosomal structural changes. And finally, we'll characterize mutations at a single base pair level, looking at whole genome sequencing. We expect this project should determine whether polymerase theta inhibition reduces cancer risk and is an effective countermeasure to cosmic radiation. We also think our proposed methodology could be used to test additional drugs and countermeasures, and we plan to expand our work to animal studies on Earth, space station, and eventually the moon. Our work seeks to broaden the understanding of DNA repair in response to cosmic rays. Our team is based out of Memorial Sloan Kettering and is led by myself and Dr. Daniel Higginson, a radiation oncologist. We have research funding from the NIH, as well as internal funding from the Sloan Kettering Institute. We're published experts in alternative end joining and DNA repair mechanisms more broadly. We have a list of critical assets on the right for this project to be completed, and our anticipated completion date is summer of 2024. We're ready to get to work and make the journey to space a little bit safer. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Devin. What a great way to finish off the Humans in Space virtual finalist selection. Judges, this is going to be the last Q&A. I know, Nicole, this is your forte. Please lead us with the first question.
Thank you, Devin, for that fantastic presentation. It was very quick when you went through how you were describing the exposure of the cells to the beam. Was it a proton beam that you were going to be exposing the cells to, or was it a different sort of radiation?
So we're going to work with the Columbia Neutron Beam Facility, and they have a mixed beam irradiator that can do galactic cosmic ray simulation.
Okay, so full spectrum.
Yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Kathy, you have a question?
Hi, Devin. That was really cool. I have a
Thank
question. I guess for better or worse, we're sending people into long-term space travel before we have this problem solved. So what is the actual attributable risk of developing cancer from cosmic ray exposure?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the only data we have is dosimetry, right? We haven't sent anyone to Mars, and our trips to the moon have been relatively short. So we're working off the assumption that this relative biological dose is going to cause problems and potentially lead to cancer. There aren't any existing statistics to give us a sense of, a percentage over time. And so all we know is that we need to mitigate this risk, and this is a way to do that.
All right, thank you, Devin, for your wonderful pitch. You finished off the event perfectly. That was the last research pitch of the Humans in Space virtual finalist selection. I may not be a researcher, and I probably lack a lot of technical data than most people here, but it's so amazing to see all the research efforts and proposals to better the lives of the astronauts as we, as humans, try to overcome the barriers of space exploration. I'm positive that all the research seen here today will be transformative in shaping the future of humanity in space, which is the ultimate goal of the Humans in Space initiative. Please don't go anywhere yet. Before you wrap up, I want to hand over the mic to Stella, our communications manager here at Orion, to give you some information about the remaining agenda of the Humans in Space program, including the schedule for the finalist announcement. So Stella, take it away.
Hello everyone, my name is Stella, and I'm a communications manager here at Orion, and I'm happy to provide you with some information regarding the remaining agenda of the Humans in Space initiative. But before that, I want to congratulate everyone here for making it this far, and also completing the semi-finalist round of the Humans in Space challenge. I was very impressed with all the amazing research ideas that you all have provided today that could potentially better the life of astronauts in space. I think we have three main agenda left for the HIS initiative. Firstly, our panel of experts and the HIS team will carefully complete the evaluations for your live research pages today and announce the finalists of the challenge on September 26th. When the finalists have been announced, we will require them to mandatorily attend the HIS Space Expansion Program, a series of workshops and mentorship sessions focused on enhancing your ideas for in-space application, and to better prepare for the final round of the challenge at the Humans in Space Symposium. Speaking of which, the HIS Symposium will be co-located with Ascend this year as Visitors Forum in Las Vegas, and the HIS finalists will receive the chance to pitch their ideas, interact with thousands of space investors, professionals, and enthusiasts. And this prestigious event will also be where the winners of the 2023 HIS Challenge will be selected. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them over to careinspace@boreum.com and visit our website, www.careinspace.com, to learn more about Humans in Space and the relevant programs. Furthermore, we encourage you to follow our social handles, including LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, to stay updated on our key announcements and events. Now I'll pass on to David to wrap up our pitch session today.
Thank you, Stella, for sharing the information about the Humans in Space Challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap up the 2023 Humans in Space virtual finalist selection. Before that, Kanu, if you could put all the judges on gallery mode. Thank you to all the judges for your valuable participation today. You have just made this experience such a good one, and all your insights and expertise will go miles into choosing our finalists for the Humans in Space Challenge. Also, thank you to all the semi-finalists for preparing such amazing pitches for the event. Remember, there's startup semi-finals is going to be live tomorrow at the same time. So all of you are welcome to tune in and watch the process of selecting the startup finalists. Thank you, everyone, once again. You all make the Humans in Space possible. Thank you for your participation.